Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good day to all of you. My name is Stineke Oenema. I'm the Executive Secretary of UN Nutrition, and I'm very pleased to be with you today, even though it's in a remote form, but otherwise it would have not been possible at all. So let me try to share my screen so I can share with you my presentation for today. I was asked to speak about sustainable healthy diets, food systems, and urban-rural links. First, maybe a few words about UN Nutrition. UN Nutrition is the coordinating mechanism in the UN for nutrition. We really try to ensure the UN speaks with one voice for nutrition, one voice, one advocacy voice for nutrition, but more importantly even, joint programming at country level to have considerable, effective, and sustainable impact on nutrition for all people in all countries. But back to the theme for today, sustainable healthy diets, food systems, and urban-rural linkages. Let me first get through a few of the challenges we are facing these days. Maybe not all of you are nutritionists, and that's exactly why I'm so pleased to be with you, to share with you some of the views from a nutritionist in the context of urban-rural linkages, in a way to try and connect the two agendas, the planning agenda, the urban-rural agenda, and the nutrition agenda. So let me share a few nutrition facts, and let me share a few ideas how we look at food systems and their challenges. Currently, the major challenge is that 1 out of 3 people in this world suffers from one or several forms of malnutrition. This can be overweight, this can be micronutrient deficiency, this can be stunting, retarded growth, or acute malnutrition. Unfortunately, also hunger has been on the rise since a few years again, after a few decades of continuous decline. And nowadays, trends are indicating that the world is not heading in the right direction in order to eradicate all forms of malnutrition by 2030, which we promised ourselves as world as part of the Sustainable Development Goals. The world faces enormous challenges in nourishing its growing population while also assuring the health of the planet. Highly processed foods that are high in sugar, salts, and fats are becoming more available everywhere, displacing the healthier options. And also often these processed foods are more cheaper and therefore more accessible than healthier options. This alarming situation takes place in the context of urbanization and population growth. And the past year and a half, the crisis, the COVID-19 crisis pandemic has shown again and again the vulnerability of our system, the food systems, but also the health system and related systems. We can say that the challenges I just mentioned are embedded in the food systems. Current diets are not healthy. They're making us sick. 1 out of 3 people is malnourished, as I said. But also we can say that these diets are the outcome of food production practices that are unsustainable and that are major contributors to the decline of natural biodiversity, land degradation, water extraction, and pollution. In addition, these current diets rely on a very limited range of crops, wheat, rice, and maize, and livestock, for example, cattle and chicken. So in fact, our global diet is quite monotonous. And this leads to a higher vulnerability in the context of climate change and other crises. We need that diversity, also genetic diversity, in order to be sustainable and to be resilient to crisis and to shocks. An estimated 1/3 of all food produced globally by the current food systems is either lost or wasted. So that also does not at all contribute to sustainability. And 1/3 of greenhouse gas emissions is related to how we produce and what we consume. So these are all elements in the food systems that either make us sick or makes our planet suffer and makes our planet suffer from climate change, pollution, and all the other environmental problems. These multiple interlinked challenges request actions that work across the same challenges. We call them so-called multi-duty or double-duty actions. So let's look at what is possible. What can we do? FAO and WHO published criteria, guidelines for sustainable healthy diets. What are sustainable healthy diets? Those are dietary patterns that promote all dimensions of individuals' health and well-being. In addition, they have low environmental pressure and impact. They are also accessible, affordable, safe, and equitable, and they are culturally acceptable. Unfortunately, these days, the SOFI, the State of the World Food Insecurity, has calculated that more or less 3 billion people don't have access to healthy diets. So we have to do something about it. What is the aim of sustainable healthy diets? On the one hand, it's to achieve optimal growth and development of everybody and to support the functioning and physical, mental, and social health and well-being at all life stages for now and future generations. And of course, support the preservation of biodiversity and planetary health. And sustainable healthy diets must combine all the dimensions of sustainability to avoid unintended consequences. As mentioned, double duty actions are needed, and the promotion of sustainable healthy diets can be such a double duty or maybe even triple duty action. Tackle several forms of malnutrition and in addition, protect our planet. So sustainable healthy diets, these are built on and respect local culture, culinary practices, knowledge and consumption, and values on the way food is sourced, produced, and consumed. As you can see, there's a strong territorial aspect in sustainable healthy diets because it respects local culture, local knowledge, and consumption. There's a few examples of territorial diets that you may know. Quite a famous one is the Mediterranean diet, and also the Nordic diet is quite famous. We can also say that diets, such as the Mediterranean or Nordic diet, that are based on a great consumption of vegetables, fruits, and fish, lead to major savings and greenhouse gas reduction compared with, for example, a mean American diet that is highly reliant on animal source foods and has less inclusion of vegetable fruits and fish. So again, that double win. Let me now go again to the topic of the urban-rural linkages and the territorial aspects. First of all, I should say that urban-rural are not distinct territories with hard edges, but they're rather part of a continuum. So we shouldn't go to that black and white, this is urban and rural. It's one continuum. And the main focus there, the main word that we should keep in mind is territorial. So we look at spaces, territories that we are planning for, that we are working for. And in that space, in that continuum, as to say, we also need to include nutrition elements. Why? Because rural-urban linkages are key drivers of the factors that are affecting nutrition and nutrition outcomes, and these can be included in actions for integrated territorial development. And integrated territorial development that includes nutrition outcomes, and therefore health, is a main driver to achieve all the sustainable development goals. UN Habitat has prepared a couple of years ago the guiding principles for urban-rural linkages, and that one is accompanied by a framework for action to advance integrated territorial development. And they make explicit reference to the objective of improving nutrition. So luckily, slowly but certainly, we are already including nutrition in these planning and territorial documents. So that means we are already starting to join hands across sectors, from nutrition to territorial aspects to planning, which is extremely important. It's extremely important to utilize a territorial lens in nutrition policy and programs, and incorporate nutrition in urban territorial planning and governance. So it's really a bi-direction. Utilize the territorial lens in nutrition, but also incorporate nutrition, urban and territorial planning. Consider how to effectively raise and shape inclusive urban-rural finance to address poverty, hunger, malnutrition. Address human rights, environmental sensitivity and participation in policies and programs to improve nutrition. Include nutrition in the context of urban-rural linkages and territorial governance and development in the research agenda, and develop tools to guide the implementation of the urban-rural linkages guiding principles, incorporating nutrition actions. I'm reading this with a smile, in fact, because if you can remember carefully that when I explained the criteria of sustainable healthy diets, there's quite a lot of similarities there. There is human rights, there is environmental sensitivity, there is participation. It's both of them, in fact, are people-centered. So there are, whether you come from nutrition or whether you come from urban-rural linkages, that promotion of sustainable healthy diets serves both. So I've been saying a few words about food systems, but I'd like to zoom in a little bit on the food environment. Basically, the food environment is where people meet the food systems. And I already mentioned the importance of to be people-centered. So the food environment basically is where people make their food choices, and that food environment is shaped by a combination of external and personal domains that is influencing their attitude and habits. And in that food environment, there is food availability, prices, vendors, and product properties, marketing and regulation that design the food environment externally. And the healthy food environment depends also on personal aspects such as geographical accessibility, affordability, convenience, and desirability. So these are all quite important, but also dynamic elements of a food environment. And because there's so many elements and because it's so dynamic, the food environment reacts quite quickly to shocks and to problems in the wider food systems. But also I need to say that its impact varies across contexts. And that is a lesson, in fact, that we have learned quite harshly, I would say, during the COVID-19 crisis, which started as a health system crisis, but that soon spilled over into the food system. And it showed, especially in the food environment, that was impacted directly by measurements that tried to contain the virus, quick changes that affected immediately the prices, the vendors and the consumers in how and what they could pick and choose for their daily consumption, their daily food choices. Just one little remark again about urban areas. More than half of the world populations live in urban areas, and that proportion is expected to increase. So that also means that the food environment in urban areas, it's also very important to take into account, especially because in the urban food environment, consumers are often purchasing their food and are dependent on food supply lines that are stable and secure. And what we have seen, again, as a reference to COVID-19, that the world depends often on complex and very long distribution systems and supply lines, which makes the system vulnerable. So one of the conclusions from the high-level panel of experts earlier this year in their issues document about the COVID-19 pandemic is that it is important to support more diverse and resilient distribution systems, including shorter supply chains and territorial markets. So bring it a little bit back to the locality. And I'd like to recall that during the ICN2, the International Conference on Nutrition, the second one that took place in FAO in Rome in 2015, one of the recommendations was also that there needs to be more support for local food systems. So again, the territorial aspect in relation to the support of better nutrition is important. So a few recommendations there to end this short presentation. The promotion of sustainable healthy diets, and do recall the definition, and of course this presentation I'm sure will be shared with all of you, helps on the one hand to strengthen territorial dimension of food systems, for example, through forging urban-rural linkages. It helps to improve public health and good nutrition, and it helps to improve planetary health. So 3 direct benefits of the promotion of sustainable healthy diets. But how to do that? I mentioned something about tools. Well, we have a very good tool at hand. There is this food-based dietary guidelines with sustainability criteria. And if we would develop those food-based dietary guidelines for all countries, that would really be a boost for both policymakers to explain what is a healthy diet in a certain context. It would explain, it would guide producers what to produce in their context, and it would explain to consumers what to consume, what to buy, what to pick in order to enjoy a healthy diet that is sustainable at the same time. I also recall that earlier in this presentation, I mentioned that about 3 billion people at this moment don't have access to healthy diets. Prices are too high. One of the tools that we can apply to help curb that trend is to ensure public finance to support sustainable healthy diets in schools, hospital canteens. In that way, especially when sustainable healthy diets are procured from farmers, small, medium enterprises in the locality, according to sustainability criteria, it may help push the needle, shift the needle a little bit in a more positive direction. The local economy would benefit, the health of people would benefit, and then also the environment would benefit. Of course, this is not the only tool that we would need. We would also have to look at the wider food system. We would also have to look at a more diverse pattern of subsidies, agriculture subsidies, that favor less the 3 major crops that I mentioned earlier on, rice, maize, and wheat, but also support a wider range of crops that include fruits and vegetables in order to support the consumption of fruits and vegetables, which is such an important element of healthy diets. So I thank you very much for your attention. I am sorry I cannot take any questions, but feel free to reach out to me. The organizers do have my my contact details. I wish you a very pleasant day and hope to see you in another occasion. Thank you so much.